Hey y'all, welcome back to Legally Live. I'm your host, McKinley Molasaw, criminal defense attorney in Austin, Texas. Today we are going to be doing a recap of the Kaitlin Armstrong trial, and we're going to be doing day 7. This is part 2. If you are not caught up, I would suggest that you go back to the playlist and watch part 1 of day 7 recap. The reason that I broke them up into two videos is because the ballistics witness took up a good portion of the day. So I am going to be reading through the notes from the ballistics. Also, you should go down to the very bottom in the description, and there is a list of other streams that I've appeared in. Specifically, there is a stream down there for the Making Law Simple channel, and we discussed the ballistics from the day 7 recap with Ian Runkle and Stephen Gosney, and they had a lot to say about the firearms expert. So I would really recommend that you go and watch that as well, because I just do not have the same kind of knowledge about this specifically. So on day 7 in the afternoon, the state called Stephen Aston. Hold on a second. And he is their expert for tool marks, which he explains tool marks also includes guns, firearms. So he works for Austin Police Department, and he's an APD forensics tool mark examiner. The jury got super tired during this part. Okay, so he says that he started discussing how he analyzes bullets and casings and cartridges and what he's looking for in order to make an identification. He says they want a comparison to the fired ammunition from the scene to the exemplars which they use in the lab for the test firing. And if they can find enough similarities between those exemplars and the crime scene, then they have a match. But this is crazy because he said match in the beginning of the testimony, and then later on cross, he's going to say that he doesn't call it a match, that it's an identification. So there's that. He says also when a bullet hits something hard, the bullet is damaged and breaks apart into smaller pieces, and that's how they end up with fragments. In this specific case, the lab received 3 bullets from the crime scene and 1 collection of fragments. I think it was 5 tiny pieces of fragments of bullets. And he said that happens because when it hits something hard, it will break up and turn into fragments. Then he conducts an exam by putting the test fired bullets underneath a comparison microscope along with the crime scene bullets, and he compares the ridges and the grooves and lands and also the different striations. And it compares them side by side, and he claims that that's how they get, when they have a sufficient agreement between the two, that's when they will make an identification. Identification being it came from this gun. The cartridge is the case, and so with the cartridge, one end is the case and the other end is the projectile. And at the base, it has the primer, which serves as ignition for the gunpowder. There's also a pen, which they say leaves an impression on the cartridge when it's fired. And then he said he showed us a bunch of test fire bullets, and he says you should expect to see the same amount of similarities to each other, right? And that's obvious, because if he's test firing two from the same weapon, then they should be the same, because he claims this is like a fingerprint. Um, then he says that they got the same kind of ammo, and he says that the type of ammo that this was, what he believes it was ammo inc ammo, and the reason he thinks that, I guess, is because that's the type of ammo she purchased at the shooting range. No, also because it has a stamp at the bottom, the manufacturer's stamp, and it says JAG, J-A-G. And he says that that is indicative of the manufacturer that manufactured the cartridges in this case, and that Ammo Inc. almost exclusively used JAG stamped cartridges to put with their to put in their boxes of ammunition. And then I think he said sometime in 2020 or 2021, Ammo Inc. purchased this manufacturer that used the JAG stamp. And so now it just says Ammo Inc. on the bottom. But at the time of this crime, he believes that it would have said JAG at the bottom. So when a bullet is going through a barrel, it creates these lands and grooves on the surface, right? And he says that this is because in the manufacture of the barrel, it requires impressing the inner surface with spiral grooves, like in order to improve the accuracy and the aim of the bullet. And he compared it to a quarterback throwing a football. And this spiraling groove impression is known as rifling. And he says that so there should be like specific characteristics that are unique to each manufacturer, right? And you can also like tell the caliber and the type of weapon that it is, he claims, from looking at obviously from looking at the bullet. And then he says that with these bullets that he got, he also used the same type of ammo, and then he test fired them in the lab to produce the same results. And he went through showing us the bullets from the scene compared to the bullets that he test fired himself. And he said that he had rendered an opinion, and his opinion was that two of the bullets, which were that had minimal damage to them, impact damage, he was able to conclusively say that those were fired from the same weapon. One of them that had heavy impact damage, he said it was inconclusive. It still had all the class characteristics, but as far as the individual characteristics, it had more than he would expect to have from two bullets fired from different guns, but it didn't have all of them that he would normally like. It didn't have sufficient agreement that he could say that it was an identification. And then with the fragments, he said that those were too damaged, that they were unsuitable for comparison. Then he says, then on cross, we see him say that this is a subjective science, right? It's not objective. He also says that when Joffrey asked him if he was able to make a match whenever he renders his opinions and makes the comparisons, and he said no, he would never use match because that's not correct. They like to call it an identification. But truthfully, apparently he had used match in a hearing previously, and he definitely used it in the beginning of his testimony on that day. Then Joffrey asked him 3 times about any mistakes that he had ever made on proficiency exams, and he said he had never made one, that he had a perfect score. And I think that Joffrey was probably trying to show that nobody ever fails these. Because then he also asked if anybody in the department had ever failed. And Aston said that somebody had failed one portion of some kind of forensics at some point, but that that person was not fired. They were just, I think, taken off of certain assignments. And then, so whenever we saw the projectiles from the crime scene, two of them had reddish brown stains on them, which he said were blood, and one of them still had hair attached to it. And that was clearly very difficult for the family in the courtroom to view those photos. In addition, he said that when he made the statement about the bullets traveling through bone and tissue and that causing damage to them, that you could hear audible crying in the courtroom. So a very difficult time. It was very difficult to look at. Now, Joffrey also got him to admit that there's no set standards for how much agreement is necessary before making an identification. And that can change from exam to exam. And Aston said that can even, no, it can change from examiner to examiner, but it can also change for he himself from case to case. So no set standard. Then Joffrey also brought up that on direct, he said that Detective Spittler had sent over Colin Strickland's gun and asked him to eliminate it. And so he proceeded to eliminate it. And Joffrey was saying, well, don't you think, so you already had a conclusion before you analyzed the exemplars in this case. And he said, no, he didn't do that until after he analyzed. He just misspoke. And then he also says that he did not develop a NIBIN lead, even though that was stated in the probable cause affidavit that wasn't true. And that is important because in the probable cause affidavit, it did say that he had developed a NIBIN lead. But if that were the case, that would mean that gun had been fired in previous crimes. And that's also not possible, I don't think. So that's crazy. And then also, Joffrey pointed out that the examiner only showed us bullets that were shot from the same gun. That's what they're claiming, but they never showed us any bullets fired from guns of the same type and manufacturer, and hopefully from the same manufacturing line, like the same batch, because there is an article in this field where that has been tested, and that apparently there's a 51% agreement between bullets fired from similar but yet different handguns. They never test them against other handguns of the same type that are not known to have been the crime scene gun. They don't have any known error rate, and they also have another examiner test their work. And the way that they do this is that they just reperform the test. And this happens like right next to the lead examiner or the case examiner in the same lab. So there's that. On direct, he had also said that the bullet that was inconclusive was the bullet that was found underneath the washer and dryer unit. And if you recall from Detective Spittler's testimony, he had introduced photos of what he said were defects in the metal in the dryer unit, specifically in the dryer unit's door. And he hypothesized that might be from a projectile. And so it appears that that's what Aston is alluding to as well. For me, during this testimony, I know a lot of people in the courtroom, because this testimony was super long. The beginning of the testimony was very confusing for me because I found it odd that we were only looking at bullets that had been fired from the same gun. And like Joffrey said, I would have liked to have seen bullets fired from another 9mm Sig Sauer pistol to see how much agreement there was between the different striations. One of I'll agree, the ones that they put up mostly had a lot of agreement. The one that was inconclusive for him, to me, looked like very little agreement. So I'm not sure why he still believes it came from the same gun. It's just inconclusive. That's kind of weird. Yeah, I went back and forth the whole time being like, oh, okay, this is believable. And then no, this is not believable. But I think that actually for all the cross-examination that I have seen in this trial up until now, this was definitely the defense's strongest showing, right? Joffrey really appeared to grasp the material. And besides him asking things in a kind of convoluted way, instead of, asking direct leading questions, other than that, it was clear he had a grasp on it. And for me, like I said, I was very interested in the cross-examination part just because I was so confused during direct. But I think that the convoluted nature of his questions made lots of people tune out, especially the jury. Watching them during this portion of testimony, they were bored. They were not paying attention. Some of them were even falling asleep. So that is not good. They actually took more breaks than usual during this portion, I think just because it was so boring and the judge could tell that they were falling asleep, right? There was also a little bit like it got fiery for a second because the witness wasn't answering one of Joffrey's questions. And so Joffrey started to kind of talk over him to try to interrupt his long monologue. He should have objected, like non-responsive, but he didn't. He started to talk over the witness, and the state stood up and was very, very big mad and wanted him to stop talking over the witness and let them finish their answers. But after that, Joffrey moved on, and it was a good strategy on the state's part to get up and make such a fiery objection because it did definitely throw Joffrey off, and I think that's exactly why they were doing it. He kind of lost his footing and started to ask questions in a roundabout way, started talking about an article, and didn't come back to the question quite like he had hit it the first time. And then not pinning him down on those answers. I mean, of course, this guy also didn't seem like, I mean, I don't know, actually, he did seem pretty straightforward. Like he would eventually answer a question if you did pin him down. So that probably should have been done. But for real, overall, Joffrey did a fantastic job of this. And then that was the end of his testimony for today. But he is going to be back on the stand on day 8. And in addition to that, I believe that was this day 8? No, we're in day 7. I believe that defense is also going to be calling their own ballistics expert. So that should be interesting. Stay tuned, and I will give you a synopsis of that in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share. Comment in the comment section, do all the things. And also, remember, I have linked in the bottom of this description videos, like the video specifically to the live stream that I did over on Making Law Simple with Gosney and Runkle. And I also have links to Valhalla's channel and to Legal Bites. So go down there, check them out, go subscribe. And I will see you for the next video. Thanks, guys. Bye.